How y'all doing?
Well, as you guys can imagine, most people in their lives, if they're lucky, get one great career. Dwayne Wade said that wasn't enough. And instead, fast forward after 3 NBA championships, Hall of Fame, one of the greatest players of the sport, he is now building again, building from scratch and continuing to do so. Today, we're going to hear how he did it, some of the lessons he learned, and what's in store ahead. So, Dwayne, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you guys for being out here in this sun, and hopefully y'all walk away with something.
I have a feeling you all will. Dwayne, we were talking earlier, one thing that really strikes me about your career, at age 37, you walked away from one of the greatest careers in your sport, and you said you were willing to learn from scratch. Fast forward today, you wear so many different hats: entertainment, production, sports ownership, business, and the like. But what's remarkable is that you were willing to go into spaces and industries that you knew nothing about. And very oftentimes, he went into spaces where no one else looked like him. Usually, for most people, they would let one of those things stop them. In this room today, we have people who are trying to master something at their best, but you keep willing to start over and over again. What drives you?
What drives me is so many different things. First, I would say my family. I'm very family oriented in that sense, and I've been driven since you're growing up in the inner city of Chicago, and you look around and you have nothing, and you want to do for the ones that you love, and so God blessed me with an extreme talent, and not the talent of basketball, the talent of empathy, the talent of awareness, and of my surroundings, and then opportunity was presented to me. And so what drives me first is my family. What drives me next is my community. It's a little Dwyane out there. It's someone out there that needs a model of a sense. There's so many different ways, as we talked about upstairs, there's so many different ways to get to the front of the line. And I think my journey is some of an inspiration, an aspiration for someone. And so it drives me to know that I can make an impact on someone like someone made an impact on me. So many different things drive me. Life, waking up every day. Like, we're blessed to be here in this exact moment, and I don't take that for granted at all. So I'm just a driven individual.
Driven individual, as I said, who keeps building in so many different ways. And I would imagine some of what you learned in basketball transfers to business, the discipline that made you one of the great players, competitive fire, and the like. How much, I would be curious, of how much that transferred to business? And were there things from your basketball career that may have even actually got in the way when you started out your business endeavors?
Well, I think the hardest part is, when you're dedicating your entire life to something, that's all you really focus on. And so basketball was, obviously it was what I did, but it becomes your identity. And then I retire, and I'm 37 years old, and I'm trying to find myself, my new self again. And it was confusion at that time with trying to see, like, what's next for me. And so what I did know is I took the things that I learned along my journey to become a great athlete, and I just tried to apply those things to business or to the person that I wanted to become. And so it's so many things that that you could take from one thing and apply it to the next. And so, yes, I understand being a good teammate leads to success, right? I understand, being somebody who's collaborative leads to a certain kind of image, a certain success. I'm a collaborative leader. I've won championships with Shaq. I won championships with LeBron. That shows the collaboration. That shows being able to collab and be a leader. And so I take these things that I've done and I've had successes in, and I try to learn how to apply those into, the rooms that I walk in. Even though now I walk in these rooms and I feel like a baby. Like I said upstairs, I feel like a baby in diapers because I didn't spend 37 years trying to be great at this aspect, in investing in business the way I am. I was just really trying to be, the greatest athlete that I could become. But along the way, I learned a lot of things about myself. I learned a lot of things about people, how to work and how to adapt as well. The adaptability is going to be very, very important as you guys go through your journeys. And so I learned all these these things, and I was like, okay, I guess I can apply these to these rooms that I'm sitting in now.
One other thing that really strikes me when thinking about basketball and business, when you're in basketball, every night you have a scoreboard telling you wins and losses. You have 20,000 people around you every single night, whether you're winning or losing. Business, in many respects, takes that away. It could be years, a decade before you know your necessarily business is going to stick, and you don't have that real-time feedback. How have you learned to build without those signals in the current work that you're doing right now?
Yeah, this B don't want us to be great. Sorry, it's B. Yeah, in basketball, game starts, you get a bucket, it's 2-0. That's immediate satisfaction, right? Right away, you get immediate satisfaction. The crowd goes crazy. I feel like the man. In business, it's a slow burn, right? And so I had to learn that very early that my wins didn't come immediately. It came in an email, you know what I mean? It came, 3 years later. And so I think it's definitely a difference between that, but the process to get to that satisfaction is the same. The work that you have to put in, I would like to go out on a limb and say my work ethics is the thing that, has allowed me to be successful. I get up every day to, be better than I was the day before. And so, that's what I did as an athlete as well. I got up every day to try to be better, or be better than Kobe, or be better than LeBron. Whether I accomplished that or not, I had things that I wanted to strive at. And so it's the same thing in business. I'm always looking to see who's doing what and how they're doing it, and, trying to make sure that I'm putting myself on that same path, in a sense, even though I'm driving in my own lane, and I'm not trying to be like anyone, but I'm also trying to be inspired by so many others. And so I think it's just that fine line of understanding that, patience is a virtue. You need patience, but also, too, it's the work that's put in every day that leads to that eventually success. When you hear that someone has sold their company or they built this company, it didn't happen because they woke up and said, oh, I want to build this company. It happened because of the steps and the days and even the steps backwards that you had to take to get there.
We were talking earlier, and I love the analogy you used. Oftentimes, you go into these rooms and you feel like a baby in diapers. There's very few people of your height that would be. That image just literally makes me laugh. But when you go into those rooms, we've talked a lot about the humility and the role of ego. And I think when all of us are building things, you need to have a healthy sense of confidence and ego to continue to pursue things. But there's also a balance of learning when to check that. Can you walk that through that evolution in your career, particularly when you started your career in a sport that so often people is inextricably linked with ego?
Yeah. I mean, ego's not a bad thing. Ego is things that, we definitely need. I like to say that I'm as we talked about, I'm about growth over ego, but understanding the moments to bring your ego in rooms is important, but also to learn how to check those egos. And so the example that I use is I played in the Olympic team in 2008, the Redeem team, one of the greatest Olympic teams ever with some of the greatest players. And Coach K talked to all of us about bringing our egos. That's what got us here, is the egos and the confidence that we have in ourselves. But learning how and when to check those egos at the door. And I think that was a very important antidote that he shared with me, and it really clicked to me. I was like, yeah, I am here for a reason. I am that guy. But also, too, look at the other guys around me. And so you have to learn how to be confident, to be able to step. I always say leaders have to lead in front, but you're also a great leader if you can lead from behind as well. And so it's just a fine line of, coming in with your chest poked out always, but also coming in just eager, wanting to learn, understanding that you don't know everything, even though you're great at your, in your respective sport or in respective business. There's someone out here that knows way more than I know in their respective field. And so I don't have an ego to things that I don't know. I think that's one of the things that, I try to do is I want to play to my strengths always. I think it's important to play to your strengths, but it's also important to understand that it's opportunity in your weaknesses to grow. And that's what we're all here for. We're all here to continue to strive, to continue to grow. And that's what's important for me.
When you think about your strengths, what do you think your ultimate superpower is?
My ultimate superpower, showing up. It's when I show up. People, I think I'm great with people. I think I'm great at understanding the difference, this uniqueness that's out here in this audience. We all are not alike, even though it's some things that we have that's common. But I believe my strength is when I show up, because when I show up asking questions. I show up to obviously share experiences. My experiences is where my confidence comes from, of course, but being there, being present. With my kids, I'm about to leave here, jump on a plane. I got to go back home for a couple of days. I got to show up. I got to get back to it. I got to get back to my business. And so I think that's my greatest strength. And, I try to make sure when I'm building with partners that I'm not just taking the first check that's given to me. I'm actually building the relationships to learn. And like we talk about, it's a feel thing. It has to feel a certain way for you. And then it's right. And so, I'm about people first and then deals second. And that's the thing that a lot of people don't want. We want that quick satisfaction. We want that quick check, that quick money. That's not the way that I move. It takes me a while to actually feel right about, the business or the person or the situation that I'm in, because I want to build with the people first, and then let's build the deal.
I think a lot of us have access to opportunities that we're evaluating, and we don't necessarily know which one to pursue. You said you're a feel person. Have you always learned to trust that instinct? Is there a moment that stands out in the business work that you've done where you sort of either realize that to learn and to lean in and to trust that instinct, or one where you realize how you have to recalibrate along the way?
Yeah, I mean, I've made a lot of mistakes, and we will continue to make them. I think, I'm imperfectly perfect, and that's something that I definitely know. But when it comes to, that feel, it's just about spending time with people and seeing what their values are. Do your values align with my values? If they don't, then okay, let's respect each other from across the street. And I think that's one of the most important things for me is when I spend time with people is I try to learn their values. What kind of son are you? What kind of husband are you? What kind of father are you? What kind of community leader are you? If our values don't align, it's no disrespect, no love lost. Just do it let's look at each other from across the street. And so I want to align with people that have the same values that I have, because I could be my best self, knowing that we're trying to go the same direction in life.
I love it, being in places where you can be your best self and with people who help you in that way. When I look at your career, Dwyane, one of the things that stands out is on paper, a lot of the things that you said you've done wouldn't necessarily seem to be in one person's career, just in terms of the number of industries you've been in, the numbers of opportunities. You recently just partnered with JP Morgan on their athlete council to really help create communities, conversations around finance, something you said that you wish you had. When you look at all these different pieces of the work that you're doing, what's the through line? What connects them all together in terms of your broader mission?
Well, just sharing experiences. I think it's important. I always feel sometimes I get a sneak peek, in certain rooms, and it's my job to come back and be like, psst, y'all know what they talking about? You know what I mean? Like, hold on, like you don't see what's coming. I'm getting a chance to get the behind the scenes, behind the curtains in a sense. And so I'm always about sharing my experiences, because that's what's true, right? The things that you go through, the things that you hear, the things that you see, the things that you feel. And so, it's important that, you don't, I remember being in school and I probably didn't study and do the work. And I came in for a test day and I was trying to look over the shoulder of one of my classmates and they put their arm like this. They didn't want me to get the answers, right? Well, I don't want to be that way. I want to actually give the answers to what I know and what I've experienced and what I've seen. And so that's probably the most important thing for me, is to make sure that, with this microphone that I have, everything that I talk from and I talk about, I talk through living it. I talk through, seeing it, through asking questions about it, studying it, and really just in it in all ways. And so that's one of the most important things that I've done, is just live life and then come back and share the things that I've done and that I've seen.
There was an interview that I watched for you that I loved, because you talked about the sense of just going into spaces and rooms you haven't been before. But there's a quote that I loved in this interview. You said, "Not everyone is going to be invited into that room, so hold the door open, and if you can't, make sure you're doing your job for the people you hope will walk through it." When you look at this group of people, some of which are entering their first room, some of which have a lot of access to opportunities, others who are in the early part of their journey. What do you want them to understand about that responsibility?
Yeah, well, I feel like if you're the lucky one to get invited to a room and you look around and your peers that you've worked hard to, like, you guys are all striving for something, but you got into that room. It's not just for you to be in that room. It's for you to go in there, take notes, understand what's going on, and come back and share what you just seen. And every time I go into a room, it's not just for me, it's for the next person that's going to be in this same chair one day. This chair is not just reserved for me. It's just for a moment that I get a chance to be in this room. And if I can, I'm going to put my foot at the door and try to make sure the door stay cracked open so you can see and hear. But if I can't, I'm going to come out with all these notes and I'm going to share the things that's happening in these rooms. So when you guys step into these spaces, and there's going to be times where, your peers are going to get there before you. And if they're not willing to share what helped them get there or what they heard in that room, then they're not friends of yours and they're not people who want to see you be successful. I feel like we all have purpose in life, and I feel like we all are here to do something. And if I'm doing something and you're doing the same thing, it doesn't mean we both can't be successful. And I know I drive in my car, and it's a car driving next to me on the right, it's a car driving next to me on the left, front and back, and we all go in a certain direction. And so, I always talk about, enjoy the traffic. We all got a GPS in life, but sometimes your traffic is standstill and others is just flowing. Don't be jealous of their flow. Enjoy that traffic. Understand that there's something in there for you, and then at some moment your flow gonna come. And we have a saying in sport and I think in life it's about being prepared and being ready, right? You don't have to get ready if you've already done the work. And so do your work. Stay ready for your opportunity, and when your opportunity comes, be ready to go.
I love that. Yeah, I don't think anyone sort of thinks of traffic that way. That is sort of a wonderful analogy. As we begin to wrap up, two last questions for you. If the 20-something version of you were in this audience today watching you, what would surprise him most about the person that you've become?
That I dress nice. That would surprise me. No, I would say what would surprise me most is in probably the way that I've used this microphone. I was a very shy kid. I was one of the people that was in the audience that you would never have to worry about me asking a question. I'm trying not to be seen, but I had a lot of thoughts, and I wanted to raise my hand a lot, but I never did. And so I would be surprised that I'm someone who steps out in front on conversations and issues that are not common or they're not popular, and I stand up and I stand out proud on those things. I never thought that would be me, but you never know what your journey is going to provide for you. You don't know what who in your life is going to be that person you got to stand up for, and you got to be there for them. And so I would have never thought I would be a person that anybody want to hear anything from. Because I was just a shy kid that just was trying to get in and get out and not be seen at all. And now I'm out here being seen a lot in my life. And so, yeah, that would surprise me that I actually take this microphone and understand that it's not just about me, that I utilize it to uplift other communities and other voices that don't get the opportunity to have the microphone.
And that's so important because I think all of us have a voice, maybe at different scales and in different rooms, but never underestimate the power of that.
Yes.
As we wrap up, Dwyane, the people in this audience today, they're betting on themselves right now, often at a time before the rest of the world has caught up. What do you wish someone had told you, sat you down and told you at age 25 when you're navigating a sense of self, trying to navigate these different chapters ahead in your life? What do you wish someone told you that you think would be valuable to this audience at this moment in time?
I mean, and I think a lot of times, we just share, it's kind of like Instagram, right? Where it's just highlights, it's filters. When I was on my journey of like, I want to be a great basketball player, I only thought about the wins. I didn't think about the losses. And I wish people would share their losses a little bit more to let you know, that it's a pothole over here in this lane. Maybe stay away from that lane. I just think that, we need to do a better job of helping each other navigate this world in all these different spaces, because we're all out here learning on the fly. No one has all the answers. And so the answers, like I said, come through these lived experiences. But I wish we would share our losses a little bit more with each other and understand that, yes, you're going to lose, but look what comes from that. Look what you can build from these losses. That's what education is. That's what the lessons are. And so I would like for people to do that a little bit more than just celebrate their wins and share their wins, which is great, which is needed. But how did you get there? Like what barriers were in the way and what did you have to overcome? What steps took you backwards and what street did you take to get there? Because I know it wasn't an easy street. And so that would be the one thing that I wish we all did a little bit more. And not in a sober, sad way, but just in a more sort of educating you to understand that you will get there. But let me talk to you about what I had to do to actually get there and the things that try to stop me from getting there. Just sharing those a little bit more.
Well, you have been so often transparent and very vulnerable, not just in your wins, but in your losses and the challenges. And so I think that's why I'm all the more grateful you joined us here today. I'm all the more grateful that you are not that 20-something-year-old who is not raising their hand, not using their voice, because the words that you say are so powerful and so inspirational, and I know will have an impact on many here today and in the months and years to get ahead. So thank you so much, Dwyane, for opening up the first conversation of this year's Under 30 Summit.
I appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. I'm here at 10:30. I know this go all day, so I appreciate y'all being here early for this conversation. Thank you so much.